The recruitment agent who I'd phoned, who got me that job in the first place, phoned me up and went, the Sloane Stanley job's come back up. I think you'd be excellent. And it was too good an opportunity to miss. I love Davis Brown, but I really wanted to go back to an estate. And yeah, this was 300 years ago. There was Sir Hans Sloane, who bought the area, which is now the Cadogan estate. And he had a brother called Sir William Sloane, and his brother bought the area next door. So that's Sloane Stanley and Cadogan date back to the same time period. We're really excited about Instagram and IT and that area. I think it's a whole new world of way of communicating with clients and people who want to visit shops. As I was saying earlier, with our 3 pop-ups with the queues outside, these were all teenage girl shops. Actually, I shouldn't be telling this, everybody else will pick up on it.
Welcome to the People, Property, Place podcast, where we delve into the stories, views, opinions and career journeys of the key figures shaping the real estate landscape. Today, I'm absolutely thrilled to have Hannah Greivson, the property director of Sloane Stanley Estate, join us. Hannah oversees one of London's most prestigious estates dating back to the 1700s, expertly balancing its historic legacy with the demands of modern urban life. She started her career in real estate valuation and has gained extensive experience in property and asset management, working both on the advisory and principal side. Hannah, I'm really excited to unpick your journey and understand a little bit more about how you and the team are shaping the future of the Sloane Stanley estate and understand your strategies for managing a mixed-use portfolio in what is a really dynamic market at the moment. So welcome to the podcast.
Hello. Hi, Matt.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. A question that I always ask at the start of these podcasts is how and why did you get into real estate? You didn't really have a choice, did you?
No, it's definitely a property business. Originally, I was totally uninspired by the idea because my dad is a surveyor and he used to regularly take us out to go and see industrial estates around the country. If we were ever travelling anywhere like Scotland or something, he'd stop at every industrial estate on the way up so he could check them for investment purposes. So that really put me off. But when I got to about 15, originally I was thinking, I'll go into medical, and I did a bit of work experience in the medical side of things and then did a bit of property work experience and thought, you know what, he's got a point. This is actually possibly the better option. So after that, yes, I went and did an urban estate management degree and ended up at Chesterton.
Very good, because you come from a long line of, it's not just your father that's in real estate,
No, my
right?
grandfather as well. And actually it's quite funny with the kids, I've got 2 children who are in their teens now, and I was hoping they'd both go into property, but I think I've put them off completely. And when they were little, they were kind of like, what am I going to do in my life? Am I going to be a model? Going to be an actress? I was like, no, darling, Mummy's a surveyor, Daddy's a surveyor, Granddad's a surveyor, even your great-grandfather was a surveyor. You're going to be a surveyor. They're not, though. They're both, one of them's going to be an artist.
There's still time. There's still time. So the kind of the surveying, the property life very much chose you.
Yes,
and
very much so.
You eventually chose it.
Yeah.
So yeah, you went off to, am I right saying the University of South Wales? And you
That's
did
correct.
Urban estate management?
Yeah, and it wasn't called University of South Wales at the time, but it is now University of South Wales. I did urban estate management on a sandwich year course there. And then during my sandwich year, I did a bit of work experience, obviously, and started off at a firm called, this is really weird, Spooner Greivson. No relation, I promise. Unfortunately, that folded within 3 months. So
Not because of you.
Not because of me. Nothing I did. Honest. And I had to go around all the major surveying firms seeing if somebody would take me up. And luckily, David Pickett at Chesterton thought he'd give me a go, and that's how I ended up there.
So you did your urban estate management degree and then moved to London? Is that what you
I'm
did?
a born and bred Londoner.
You're a born and bred
So,
Londoner.
yeah,
so you
just
kind of
came home.
came home
Yeah.
and joined Chesterton on the grad scheme? Or
Yeah,
were
on
you
the
kind
grad
of a
scheme.
non-cog?
Well, I wasn't on officially. When I first joined on sandwich year, I wasn't on the official grad scheme. But when I came back, I was put on the grad scheme then, and started off. I think the first I did a residential development, health and safety or healthcare, and social housing for my first stint, followed by a very short stint in rating, then followed by when I came back for the proper scheme, I went into commercial management, and there I ended up in commercial valuations, where I was for about 6 years, I think.
So you got your letters, having done a few different rotations. Didn't like rating?
No, I didn't.
Because?
It was a very odd department. We were kind of out in Holborn somewhere, which sounds like in the middle of nowhere. It isn't, obviously. It's
the Wild West.
The Wild West. And it was, it didn't suit me. I didn't quite get the whole...
Because it's too transactional? Or
it was a bit slow, nothing really happened. I'd spend all day looking up rateable values on a computer.
Yeah. And you're like,
and in those
I didn't
days,
get into property just to stare at a computer.
Yeah, and in those days, I didn't have a computer on my desk. I just had a telephone and a pad of paper, and then you'd have to go and sit at the computer at the back of the room, the one computer for the whole department, looking up rateable values. There was, not for me.
Not for you.
No.
How about the kind of residential and affordable
I love that. I was doing, it sounds quite modern now, social housing valuations. So I would do DISOs and shared ownership, drive around various parts of the country, look at those properties. And I also got involved with old people's homes and hotels. So, that was really good. I really liked the stint there.
Quite a niche part of the market back then, I imagine.
Very
whereas
much,
very mainstream now.
Yeah, now it was in a different... Because Cheston was all over the place. And we had our main office was in Brook Street, but residential and healthcare was in York House in Marble Arch. So, we were kind of sidelined a bit.
So from there, you moved into management, did your rotation, or was it valuation?
Yeah. Then I went into commercial management, did that for about 6 months, and then ended up in the valuation department.
So you got your letters.
Got my letters.
Qualified surveyor.
Stayed
at Chesterton's for 5-6 years
in
or
the
so.
valuation department.
In the valuation department. And what type of valuation were you doing? Is it loan security? Is it portfolio tax?
It was loan security. It's mainly for what was Norwich Union then, now Aviva. And I had a main client who he used to go to the auctions a lot, and he used to buy tons and tons of shops. I remember going to one place and I actually valued all the shops in this city, in this town, basically. And I was on my own, and looking back, and I think, God, who let me go off to this town? It was a new town, and just value all these shops. But I presume he still got them, and it's successful.
So were you particularly focused on kind of the shops, the retail space at that stage?
At that
or was it
stage,
a case of it's quite a broad sector?
Mine was predominantly retail at that point, with the odd office building.
Yeah. And a lot of your clients, were they kind of more high net worth or property companies rather than institutional businesses?
They were high net worth individuals and property companies, yeah.
Nice. And so from there, you moved, if I'm not mistaken, to the Portman estate?
I did, yes.
So did you always want to move to the client side or the principal side rather than be advisory?
Of accidental. I basically got to the point with valuations. I don't know if you've done valuations.
I haven't. I've spoken to a lot of valuers over the years, and they tend to get typecast as a particular group of individuals. And I guess you were either part of the crew.
Yeah. It wasn't so much that. I just lived in fear of being sued. Thinking, my God. Well, it was just when I started working, was just after this major crash. So when I started working, our graduate intake year at Chesterton that year was 4 people, and one of them didn't turn up because his dad had a farm and there was mad cow's disease going on. So basically 3 of us turned up. So the year before, there was something like 20, and then that year it was 3. And the market was really rock bottom. And there had been a lot of law cases against valuers. So we were very aware. It had been most of my university degree had been like, oh, this person got sued and that person got sued. And so
you were terrified of being a valuer.
Terrified of being that person.
And why, for someone listening to this who doesn't understand, why were the valuers getting sued? And can you just explain for someone who doesn't know what loan security valuation is, what it actually is, just to help plug that gap, in case someone is listening and they don't understand.
No, they don't understand. It's in simple terms, it's like a house. You get a mortgage, and it's the same with commercial property. You get a loan from the bank to cover the purchase. And then to get that loan, the person buying it needs a valuation so that the bank can say, right, it's worth the amount that you've bought it for. It can be a bit, you are instructed by the person who's bought the property, but your client is the bank. So it's the bank that will probably sue you if it goes wrong and they default on a payment and you've overvalued it.
Yeah, because you're the bank's representative to say, we're going to lend £400,000.
And in some of these, you're talking millions.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking in that terms of that.
But at that point, yes, I was not doing millions.
You weren't doing some big ticket stuff. So you were petrified of.
Which is daft now looking back, because I don't think I know anyone who's been sued for valuations now. But at the time, it was very much, I was that much younger.
Living in fear of putting the wrong number down on the report.
Yeah.
So was that what primarily drove you to decide actually, rather than be on the advisory
that was just
side?
a part of it. I wanted to be more involved with the properties. With valuations, you turn up, you measure the building, you go away. So you literally just see it that brief moment. And I thought, especially that modern town I went to look at, I thought, I'd really like to get involved with this and see more and have more control over these buildings and see what happens to them in 5-10 years. And so I went to a recruitment agent, and the Portman Estate was the first job that came up. Went for an interview, and the rest is history, as they say.
Moving away from a kind of a transactional role where you never get to see a property again.
Yeah.
You join a leading estate that's been around for hundreds of years.
Yeah, 500 years.
500 years. And completely different mindset, I can imagine. Completely
different. And I'm really glad that I've been on both sides. I think it's quite important for people to be on the agent side. You learn a lot about fees and how the property market actually works. But yeah, I love being on the landlord side.
So what role did you do at the Portman Estate?
I was a property manager. I was there for, I think, 7 years, and I was promoted to associate director at the age of 30.
And what were you
responsible? Remember that being really important for some reason to me.
And what were you responsible for doing as a property manager?
Well, at that time, they used to divide the estate into 4, and then I would manage a quarter of the estate. So I managed a bit around Manchester Street, a bit of the Baker Street, Davis Street, that area. Not Davis Street, Davis Street. And then you'd have the 3 other managers doing the other quarters.
And was that kind of a mixed portfolio? So was
completely
it kind of,
mixed.
So offices, retail, shop,
residential,
uppers,
retail. I didn't have much in the way of retail because of my patch, but I had quite a lot of residential. And at that time, Manchester Street was predominantly bedsits, which had rent-out tenants in them. And it was moving people around so that we could improve the buildings and let them as flats. So that's quite interesting job.
And did you enjoy the kind of the shift in role away from valuation to management, and also
Loved
the kind
it.
of the mindset shift and the culture of the business as well?
Absolutely. Loved it, embraced it. It was a really fascinating company to work for at that time as well.
Because?
Because I joined about a year after Hugh Seaborn joined, and when the people who own the Portman Estate decided that it was time to modernise and take it in a new direction. Estates, probably talking 30, 40, 50 years ago, where you would have one estate manager and everything else was outsourced. And then things have changed over the years, predominantly with Howard de Walden, I think, starting it in Grosvenor, bringing things in-house. So you actually manage the properties in-house, take control of it. And that was part of what I was involved with, is bringing things in-house, doing management, changing everything. Things had got so run down. It was a fascinating job.
It's probably the slight change in culture from a landlord lording over the tenants and being really kind of demanding and making sure they're collecting their rent checks 4 times a year, but not really doing anything else, to being more customer centric.
And that whole move away from 50, 25-year leases where you just gave the building to the person and then just stepped back and left them to it.
Yeah.
Now, and at that point we were just changing it from these are shorter leases, 10-year leases, more involved, more outside the act leases, trying to control the area and actually drive it in a different direction.
Build relationship with your occupiers, help them, retain them, and all of that good stuff.
Yeah.
So you really enjoyed your time at the Portman Estate, and you were there for nearly 7 years or so?
Yeah, 7 years, yeah.
You decided to leave in June 2007?
Sounds about right.
According to your LinkedIn.
According to my LinkedIn, yes, June 2007.
Yeah, don't worry, I haven't done anything further in terms of probing for that information. What was the driver behind that, and what did you go on to do?
I had 2 children in very quick succession. And although at that time they were very nice and they did let me go on to part-time work, but it was a bit of a struggle to get there. And people weren't as enthusiastic about people doing that type of work as they are now, and just trying to keep up the full-time work with the two very small children. It was just
too much
for me in the end. I had to call it quits and take some time out. I had thought it would be out for quite a while, but as you can see from my LinkedIn, it didn't work that way.
You were out for a couple of years?
Couple of years,
couple of years,
yeah.
focused on a more demanding job of motherhood and
yes,
everything else that
doing all that bit.
Comes with that.
Yeah.
You then became an assistant administrator?
Yes.
So you kind of didn't go back into property straight away?
No, I didn't, because with the children being so small. But a friend of mine suggested that she had a place come up in her work and said, oh, yeah, come and do this. It was only 5 mornings a week, 3 in the office, 2 at home. So I thought that works perfectly up in Farringdon. And I worked for a carbon trading company, which is very different. And actually, brilliant to do something different. I'd done so much property to actually come away, do something different, realise that I'm perfectly capable of doing things. I don't have to have got a degree in it. I don't have to have worked in it for years and years. It's good to do something different once in a while.
Give you a bit of perspective.
See
skills.
How journalists work. It was fascinating.
After a little bit of time there, you got back into the property space, and you went back from working on the principal side to being an advisor. And you joined Davis Brown. Is that right?
I did. What happened when I was at Point Carbon, it got bought out by Thomson Reuters, and things changed. And I could see that my role was going to be heading towards kind of secretarial. Well, and I thought, no, that's not for me. And I got a hold of an Estates Gazette, looked in the back, and there was an advert for a property director role at the Sloane Stanley. So I phoned up, thought I could do all of this, phoned up, and the job had gone. But it was McDonald's, and they said, oh, there's a job at Davis Brown. Well, I went for a few interviews, but Davis Brown's the one I got, which, I was there for a couple of years.
So you missed the job at Sloane Stanley first attempt.
Yes.
And so
didn't even get an interview, nothing.
Didn't even get an interview. Have to speak with the property director about that. And so you landed at Davis Brown, kind of niche general practice firm based on Margaret Street.
Yeah, well, I ran the management department, which sounds really grand, but there was only 4 of us.
So there's 4 of you in the management department. How big was the book, and what kind of properties were you responsible for and clients you were looking after?
It was quite small, that one. Again, private individuals mainly, private wealthy individuals. And they were, actually, no, there was Barnet Council. So there were a few councils, people like that. And it was residential. We had quite a few long leasehold residential blocks that we looked after, and some offices, which mainly are around this area. So Margaret Street, Mortimer Street, Great Titchfield Street, that type of area.
And so was it quite a granular portfolio and quite a lot of clients as well that you had to appease? And
yeah, it was again, really good experience for me, because when you work for an estate, you kind of have all the money in the world. You have to justify how you spend the money, but you'd never have to really think about it. When you're actually doing this for an individual who hasn't got that much money, it's far more, we've only got X amount to spend. It's all about the service charges. And some of the buildings, I'd never seen things like oil heating. I mean, we didn't have that at the Portman. So it was a real, really sharpen the mind.
You were there for nearly 2 years.
Nearly 2 years.
Tell me about how Sloane Stanley came back around. Well,
the recruitment agent who I had phoned, who got me that job in the first place, phoned me up and went, the Sloane Stanley job's come back up. I think you'd be excellent. And it was too good an opportunity to miss. I love Davis Brown, but I really wanted to go back to an estate. And this was...
So they called you back up.
Called me back up.
Having kind of put you back in at Davis Brown
to
kind of keep you busy.
Yes, yeah.
And then said, look, go and have a chat with Sloane Stanley. And how many interviews? What was the process like? And
I think I had, it's a while ago now. I think I had 2 or 3 interviews. Maybe it was 3, probably 3. And I think it was me, and there was one other girl that was up for the role, but I pipped her to the post.
You pipped her to the post. And what was it specifically about the Sloane Stanley estate that was appealing and exciting?
I was very comfortable with that role. I could tell the minute I walked in, I knew this was what I'd been doing at the Portman. I could do it easily. It would be something... I love Chelsea. I thought that would be a really nice place to work. And it just had a nice vibe about it. It has a really lovely atmosphere at the Sloane Stanley.
A nice culture. And can you just give me me and the listeners just an overview of the portfolio, the size, the location, because it dates back, like I said, to the 1700s.
Yes, it's 300 years old. So it is on around the King's Road and the Fulham Road.
Yeah.
For people who don't know that area, they might have seen it in Made in Chelsea. We're very lucky that way. We get free advertising. At the time, obviously 300 years ago, there was Sir Hans Sloane who bought the area, which is now the Cadogan estate, and he had a brother called Sir William Sloane, and his brother bought the area next door. So that's Sloane Stanley and Cadogan date back to the same time period.
Because Cadogan is the bigger, kind of main prominent estate in terms of ownership, in terms of that area.
100 times bigger than us.
and then you've got Martin's Properties
Martin's
as well.
Properties in the middle, yes.
In the middle. And then
and then us towards the western end. We are what we like to call beyond the fire station area. So we're between the fire station and World's End, which is where Mary Quant used to have her shop. Not Mary Quant, Vivian Westwood. And then on the Fulham Road, the same. It's about 100 shops in total and 150 flats above. And then between the two roads, there are a few large residential blocks of old, long leasehold residential.
Nice. So what was the opportunity? Was it to go and be the property director, or was it to kind of be a management surveyor responsible for...
Yeah, property manager. Just it's a very small company. At the time, I think there were probably 10 of us, and now we're up to a whole massive 13. So
some massive compound growth there. Yeah. So an opportunity to go and join a kind of a family estate, family
run business. Yeah.
250 kind of assets or so. And how did they divide and split the responsibilities when it came to management of the portfolio?
Well, my role is particularly towards the commercial side of it. So I look after all the commercial, and there's a residential manager who looks after the ASTs, and then we outsource the long leasehold residential primarily.
For someone listening to this who doesn't understand the nuance or the difference between commercial property management and residential property management, can you just give them a bit of a flavour, a bit of an overview of the difference? Because without putting words in your mouth, there's an emotional element, right, to management when it comes to people's homes compared to business premises. But there's other aspects as well, right?
It's very different, the three, I think, personally, from my experience, although I do all of them. Commercial, for me, it's predominantly retail. So these are businesses or the individual running a business. Yeah. You are very much, it's very much a business relationship. They take a lease of, on average, 10 years on our estate. And they look after the unit, and we help, but it's a much more further removed relationship. Yeah. Residential with the assured short hold tenancies upstairs, those are between, we do on average 3 years is our kind of a year to 3 years. Yeah. And there we're much more involved with the maintenance and looking after it. And then when you go to the long leasehold residential again, that's when somebody's bought their long lease. So there'll be at least 99 years, and they are responsible for the maintenance of their flat or their house. And we, via the managing agents, look after the common parts. Again, that is the short hold tenancies and the long leasehold are very emotional, particularly long leasehold, where you've spent so much money, especially you can imagine in Chelsea, the average flat's 1.6 million. So they are quite emotionally involved with their properties.
I can only imagine.
And the law is different for all three as well. So
so in terms of kind of management, you've got to have different understanding and appreciation. An ability to kind of relate to the occupiers and understand what their needs are.
And it's like for commercial, I can redecorate the building, do whatever I like, whenever I feel like it, within reason with the lease. Long leasehold, if you're going to do it up the block, you need to Section 20 notice them, and there's a lot more restrictions and legal requirements.
Quick one from me. If you haven't already subscribed or followed this show on the podcast or app where you listen or watch, please do. It takes 10 seconds and helps tremendously. I've got really big plans for the People Property Place podcast, and that one small action really, really helps grow the show and the presence and enables us to keep doing what we're doing. So if you haven't already, please follow or like on the platform you watch or listen to. Thanks so much. How have you been able to kind of placemake and create a kind of an urban, vibrant community within the kind of the portfolio and assets that you hold as the demand for landlords and location has changed?
Very much. It's I think the whole being a landlord has changed, and that's what's helped us. We have changed our leases, so we offer leases from 2 weeks to 10 years. This is a control thing. The 2 weeks are the pop-ups. They have 2 weeks to a year, probably maximum. And then the other leases are generally 5 years to 10 years. This gives us more control. They're all outside the Act, so we can get them back as and when if the tenant isn't working. And it helps us to create an area so we can choose who we put in. I think also landlords nowadays, we do more kind of studying of what these people are like before they move in. So we have a look around, we ask our agents, or we approach potential tenants and ask them if they'd like to come to Chelsea and suggest certain shops for them. We'll move people around. When we do find somebody who's come to us cold, then we'll interview them, see their other places, check out if they'll fit in, because Chelsea is unique. I know everybody in every part of London would say this about their places, but there is a certain kind of company that will work in Chelsea, which may not work elsewhere or flourish, and it's a different type of vibe.
So it's really about curating the right occupier mix, tenants, and making sure you've got the balance of income from longer term, kind of more anchor tenants with more pop-up brands are looking to kind of experiment, right? Yeah,
they're brilliant because they bring in advertising and a new kind of vibe as well. They're a much younger group in the pop-ups. We've recently had, this summer, it's been crazy. We had 3 pop-ups where they had queues out the doors all night, the night before they opened. And this is all because it's the teenage girls and those type of market that are on Instagram and
TikTok. And they've got a wait list, the loyal fans.
Yes, they all kind of come to Chelsea now.
And so it's an opportunity for those brands
whereas the longer term retail would never have that kind of following. They just haven't got the Instagram, and they don't have the ability to do it, unlike the pop-ups, which are there, do their shop and then go away and have another few months to just sell online and then come back and do another shop. Gives
the retailers the opportunity to kind of test having a physical store and be able to meet customers in person and be able to balance brand building and experience. How long have you been doing the pop-ups for, and was that a kind of a big kind of commercial risk at the time of doing it?
It was unusual. Not many people had done it. It was a bit of we'd done, before I joined, there'd been the odd one that was kind of a year or two, somebody who'd gone in on a very cheap rent. But when I first joined Sloane Stanley, a person from a peer here came over to have a chat with me.
Ross?
Right, yes.
Really?
Yes, Ross. And I thought, this has got potential. Because I like the idea of the income coming through. I hate empty units. How Sloane Stanley differs from other property companies is that we are income driven. It's not capital value. That's not what we're about. You have to have the income for the beneficiaries. So the more income I've got coming in, the better. But when I have voids, that's where the cost goes. Because
going back to your rating days.
Yes. Yes. I'd never talk about the rates. But yes, there's the rates that need to be paid. As we have to have sometimes security, electrics, all that kind of stuff. So it's all about keeping it occupied. And also it's so important with a retail street for it to keep its energy and look vibrant and keep people coming. If you've got lots of empty units, not that we would ever have because it's Chelsea, but even 1 or 2, people will notice. And Chelsea people do notice. You would definitely get comments.
There's an obligation.
It's an obligation to keep
the local community to make sure that it is vibrant because I guess people who own houses and properties, the value of sorts is attributed off the back of the hard work that you are doing. So Ross came to you and said,
Ross came to me
you've got an interesting kind of group of properties or estate. Why should we trial or try this?
And I thought, let's give it a go. And it was so successful. We did a competition for one of their clients. So they had a competition and they won a week in one of our stores.
Yeah.
And it actually worked so well that we have a dedicated pop-up shop now at 340 Kings Road. And it is booked up two years in advance. We try not to take anything more than 2 years.
Really? That's amazing.
You don't know what's going to be in fashion in future. So.
And is that and Ross, he's the founder of a business called Appear Here.
Yes.
And is it still driven through Appear Here that you do that, or do you do it directly?
We do it directly now, and my colleague Poppy is responsible to phone if you want to pop up.
So call Poppy if you want to pop up. I guess in the spirit, as you said, of bringing things in house. Something I just want to pick up on that you touched on is, as an estate, as a business, why are you so focused on income? I appreciate capital value is going to be. Going back to your valuation days, is going to be an important metric as well, but it's not the primary factor.
No, we are driven by the making of income because there are beneficiaries. Unlike large companies who have shareholders, we have beneficiaries, and it's slightly different. So we're very much driven by that, kind of making sure all the properties are let, making sure they're all income producing. Capital values, not such a big issue for us.
I guess it's almost like an institution of sorts that, kind of matching liabilities in terms of beneficiaries and making sure that kind of the income is there to be inflation linked or index linked to support the needs of the ultimate owners or beneficiaries, as you kind of touched on.
And we like to know where the income's coming, and part of the thing that we do is we don't have open market rent reviews, we have RPI uplifts every year for most of our commercial tenants and our residential as well.
So what does, for someone listening to this who doesn't know what an RPI uplift is,
it's probably going to be banned soon, isn't it?
What in terms of kind of Labour
change
government?
To CPI or
CPI.
Yeah.
What is that, and what is the difference between the
retail price index, just a way of measuring inflation, and you get so each year it would go up by, recently it's been like 1% to 4%. We do have caps and collars on them. Whereas if you're going to open market rent review, you need to employ a surveyor. Then you have to negotiate it. The reason we're also not very keen on that is that if you've got RPI, you can see where you're going each year, especially if it's capped or collared. If you're doing an open market rent review, it could jump, it could double, it could triple, and the tenant may not have that much money or not be aware that it's going to go up that much. And it also, we are very keen on having a good relationship with everybody, whether they be tenants, contractors, consultants. We like to make our relationship as easy as possible, and as we don't want any antagonistic behaviour just for the sake of it. So negotiating rent reviews can lead to quite an argument between both, and it's easier to just have, right, this is the set increases, you know what they are in advance, we know what they are in advance. Both parties
it's easier to forecast.
Much easier to forecast.
I guess it from their perspective as well. They don't have to employ a surveyor and go into bat for an upward only rent review where their rent, as you said, could double, and they might be
and then they can't afford it,
which then you have to bring someone else in. You've got your void period, and in a challenging market, you suddenly find yourself exposed with a few shops or what have you not letting. So that makes complete sense. Talk to me about kind of as your role evolved from going in as a property manager. How has it evolved to being the property director and responsible for running the show?
Well, yes, it seemed to. It just over the years I've got more and more responsibility, and because we're such a small firm, my role is much more varied than if I was at a large firm like in the old days with Chesterton. So I do, and I'm involved with nearly everything from involved with the insurance, the valuations. I do rent reviews, lease renewals, new lettings. I do have to do the management of the managing agents for the long leasehold residential. There's a lot of things, and I think over the years, more and more went to me, and that's how it progressed.
Took on more responsibility, more ownership.
Gradually over the years, and also we changed the structure of the firm. So a couple of years ago, it went from being a trust to we went through the LLP and then a limited company. So now the whole place is divided between Sloane Stanley Properties Limited and Sloane Stanley Estate Limited. Which
I can only imagine is there to set up the business for the next 300 years or so.
Yeah, I mean the whole point of the estate is long term. We've got we want to be there for another 300 years, so we're trying to invest in the area, make the shops as popular as possible, make sure the residents are happy, and then hopefully this will carry on for centuries.
Generations to come. Long after we are still here.
Yeah.
Retail has been the darling child for a number of years, and then it became a little bit of a dirty word. And it's had its challenges with the rise of e-commerce, and we touched on some of the benefits of incorporating retail into your strategy, blended with kind of online sales through the pop-ups. Can you just talk to me about kind of COVID and that period, and maybe some of the challenges and issues that arose from a retail perspective, and as a landlord of multiple retail sites?
Well, obviously, having been at the estate for 11 years, it's not just COVID that's been challenging. It has been a decade there was internet shopping, there was the Scottish vote, there were wars, there was Brexit, and then COVID. And I feel sometimes like I've cursed the whole of retail just by joining, but I've been told that all retailers feel that way, or anybody involved with retail. COVID was tricky. Obviously, I came to work one day and there was 100 rent reduction requests on my emails. But we talked to everybody. It has had some beneficial fallout since. So we talked to everybody, gave the majority of them 3 months rent-free, and then moved on. We didn't lose any tenants during that time. I think we pretty much retained all of them for 2 years. So it's just pretty impressive going. And now we understand, as a result of all of this, we asked for all their accounts and details of their business. I think we understand our tenants better and have a better working relationship with them all as a result of it. So there was some good to come out of it.
So challenging at the time, but just helps kind of bring the estate and the business further forward, I guess, in terms of the future and relationships with occupiers and understanding their business better.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see how different people reacted to obstacles like this and challenges, because some of the retailers would sit back and say, right, that's it. It's all going to fold. I'm going home. I'm going to sit at home for a while. Others, just the initiative and the ideas they came up with were fantastic. It was amazing.
Have you seen a change from retail premises on your estate being change of use to maybe kind of leisure or being more experiential? Because there seems to be a wider theme just in terms of, from the people and the conversations that I've had, in terms of people craving experience in real life.
Very much so. Well. Yes, they want the experience. And I think retailers move very much from, you don't go to a shop to just buy what you could off Amazon. You've got to go in there for a reason. And the experience is part of that. Also, we've always been, because of the location of the estate, it is a 20-minute walk from a tube station. Now, those outside of London are probably thinking, what? Why is this an issue? But for a Londoner, a 20-minute walk from a tube station is a long way. It's a very long way. So we've always had to, we can't rely on passing trade the same way that further up towards Sloane Square. We've always tried to aim for people who were either very big on the internet, big abroad but not known here, or experiential, people that we would come to see them specifically, and would draw people to the area. So that's...
You've recently got third space as well, in terms of kind of an anchor occupier. Can you just talk to me about
that? Very exciting.
That deal?
It was. We have a telephone exchange which BT vacated in 2018, and it's approximately 25,000 square feet, and it was. It's been a labour of love, but that completed recently, and third space should be opening, I think, in about just over a year's time.
Amazing. And so I guess a lot of the target customers that third space would have, just given what you said about the tube station, would be the local community in and around the estate, right?
Yeah, and we don't have that kind of club in our particular patch in Chelsea. There's obviously there's Kicks by Sloane Square, but there's nothing in our location.
So it's a landmark.
It's a landmark, and it will be for them. It's an amazing building as well. So I think it'll be a kind of flagship for them as well. That'll
Phenomenal.
Be quite impressive. Yeah.
So what are the other opportunities? I appreciate there's some challenges ongoing in the market at the moment. What are the kind of the main opportunities that you sense for the business in this kind of window?
We're really excited about Instagram and IT and that area. I think it's a whole new world of way of communicating with clients and people who want to visit shops. As I was saying earlier, with our 3 pop-ups with the queues outside, these were all teenage girl shops. Actually, I shouldn't be telling this, everybody else will pick up on it. But one of them was actually run by a 15-year-old.
Amazing.
Yeah, with her mum's help, which is incredible. So they're on Instagram selling their goods or advertising their goods all the time, and then they're in our shops, and it's just amazing. So I think we see a lot of potential with younger people, and actually getting in with what they want, having a bit more of a lively atmosphere on the King's Road.
Claire Dorr, who is head of asset management at Stanhope, has been on the podcast, and I remember her saying, in relation to talking about her kids, they're the kidpreneur generation. And so it doesn't surprise me that you are getting that sort of demand from teenagers who are inspired by the kind of Instagram or TikTok feeds that they spend a lot of time consuming. And I guess, it makes sense that parents, although my son is only 17 months old or so, but would want to engage with a family-run business that has been there for a long term, where there's that transparency in place, and they've got the comfort that you'll say you'll do what you will do when they're kind of putting their teenagers' businesses in your hands.
But I think young people have got quite a bit, a lot more going at the moment. I think with COVID, the generation before, they've all now had their babies. They're people like you who've had babies. You're probably not going out every night anymore or been visiting exciting shops. You're probably a bit more in the park.
Yeah.
So the new generation, what they call Generation Alpha, and they're coming through, and they've got quite a few ideas. So that's a definite potential for us, the younger generation, what's coming up, exciting new foods. We've got lots of new pizza beers opening. I think that's the type of food they want. So you can watch things come and go, fads, and the latest one's pizzas and teenage girls' clothing, which is so reassuring, because on the King's Road we have always been known for fashion, and when for the last since COVID, fashion dropped, just disappeared. I wasn't getting any inquiries about fashion, but with the pop-ups we've managed to keep that going. So there was always, they don't want the longer leases, they wanted the short-term leases, but recently some of the short-term leases have gone into longer leases. And then I've got these little ones in the meantime as well.
Do you look to the Bedford Estate, Howder Walden, Covent Garden to an extent, Grosvenor for inspiration or collaboration?
We collaborate with Cadogan and Martins on various things. We've got what is called a bid on the King's Road, which is a business initiative
district.
That
was a good guess.
And that is something that we all everybody pays, is a commercial tenant on the King's Road, pays 1% rateable value towards this bid. And then they organise events, security, street cleaning, a takeover, make sure that the council's doing what they're supposed to be doing. And that's actually worked really well. So it helps bring all the other landlords together. So we all talk to each other.
So you work in collaboration rather than competition?
Yes. I mean, there's always a bit of healthy competition.
Of course.
But when you're competition's the Cadogan is slightly
well, maybe we'll
slightly
see
bigger than us,
slightly bigger than you, but it's great to hear that you guys collaborate together and make sure the whole kind of area and infrastructure is as lively and clean and activated as it possibly can do, because it's going to benefit everyone, obviously.
And I think people are genuinely concerned about security and things like that. So if they know, they can see their street wardens walking up and down. I mean, I think most estates do it nowadays. And I think that's what makes London quite unique, are the estates and the amount of money and time and passion they put into the area. I think it really keeps us, makes London what it is.
Well, a lot of them predate America, so
yes,
it's heritage, right?
It's heritage, and that's
so...
that's part of what we're trying to do, is keep the heritage. It's part of our sustainability strategy, and sustainability is something that's really strong and really important to the younger generation. We have a lot of our pop-ups come in, and it's about sustainability, the sustainable clothes, sustainable whatever they're selling, and that's quite important for us as well, because being concerned about that, you want to keep the heritage. If you're knocking down everything, that's not particularly sustainable. So we do have to do we keep the buildings, try and look after them as well as possible. So again, they'll be here for another 300 years.
Amazing, and it makes complete sense that a family-run business over 300 years is focused on sustainability and future-proofing it for future generations as well.
Yeah.
As well as your kind of retail and leisure offerings, you've also got quite a thriving or growing food and F&B part of the estate. Can you just elaborate on that?
Yes, about 25% of the estate is food and beverage. So we've got quite a few restaurants. They have changed over the years. So when I first joined, it was all hamburgers and cocktails, but we've moved on from there. We've got 2 of the latest pizza restaurants opening. Alley Cat's has opened and Pizza Pilgrim's in the future. And we've got quite famous chefs now, like Claude Bossy on the Fulham Road with Josephine's, which has really taken off. And what we try to do is we're very keen on the nighttime economy. We want the road to be working and buzzy all day and all night. I mean, obviously within reason.
Within reason.
I don't want the residents to be upset.
Exactly.
But yeah, we're very keen on restaurants and making sure that it's always lively around there. So, we've always had the Bluebird, which continues to go from strength to strength.
Flagship spot, right?
Oh, it's fantastic, that one. Have you been recently?
I haven't been recently.
Oh.
No, I'm not a Chelsea dweller, but I have been. I have, albeit 8 years ago or so, something like that. But it's a beautiful building and in a prime location. So yeah.
And most people will. Often when I see people who are of my age or in their 30s and say where I work, they'll go, "Oh, I remember Chelsea. I used to hang out there in my youth. Always went to raffles and 151 and." It's all still there.
Guilty
of
attending all of those establishments. However, not for probably 10 plus years ago at least. Well, look, as we draw to a close, Hannah, a question I ask everyone who comes on the podcast is: if I gave you £500 million worth of capital, who are the people, what property, and which place would you look to deploy that? And I don't think, unless you gear it up significantly, you're going to be able to buy the Cadogan estate.
Might not be able to buy the Cadogan, but for me it'd be a no-brainer. Obviously it'd be a London estate, predominantly retail, because I think you stick with what you know. I'm an expert in this particular type of management. That's what I'd buy. So, unless the odd estate comes up,
so London estate, retail anchored. And the people part?
People part, everybody I've got with me at the moment.
You can have your whole team. Is there anyone that you've worked with previously or that you rate that you'd want to bring in or rope in to help you deploy that capital?
Well, one thing I do believe very strongly in is the team that you've got around you. And I have the best group of consultants and PR and solicitors, and I would take them with me.
You'd take them all. You'd in-house them all.
I'd in-house them all.
In the kind of the Portman and Sloane Stanley ethos.
No, they're a brilliant team, and I wouldn't be where I am now without them.
Well, Hannah, you kind of fascinating background, and I know that you and the team will go on to continue evolving and maintaining and improving the Sloane Stanley estate so it is fit for purpose for the next 300 plus years. So thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the People, Property, Place podcast. If you found it insightful, feel free to share it with a friend or colleague. Give us a rating, like, or comment. It helps tremendously. It'd be great to hear from you on LinkedIn. I'm super open-minded to recommendations of guests that we should have on the show or areas of the market we should explore further. So do drop me a message. The People, Property, Place podcast is powered by Rockborn. The team recruit leadership and future leadership hires for real estate owners, funds, investors, and developers. So if you're looking to hire top talent for your business, head over to the website www.rockborn.com, where you'll be able to find a wealth of information. Or feel free to drop me a message on LinkedIn. Have a great day wherever you are, and I look forward to catching you next time.